Good morning, scholars. Okay, so we are doing our virtual lesson, our first one. I am going to try to walk you through the first part of the lesson. This is lesson one, the relationship of addition and subtraction. We are working with the classwork. Opening exercise. Draw a tape diagram to represent the following expression, 5 plus 4. Now, this is just a review of addition and subtraction, and then tomorrow we'll do one on multiplication and division because we're getting ready to get into algebraic expressions. And that's going to be why you need to make sure you have a strong foundation in addition and subtraction and multiplication and division. So this lesson and the next lesson should be pretty easy. The first one says, draw a tape diagram to represent the following expressions of 5 plus 4. And we know a tape diagram is merely just a line or a box. So because it says 5 plus 4, I want to draw a box that has 5 in it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That should give me 5 boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's my 5. And I want to add 4. So I'm just going to join another box that has 4 on it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is 5 plus 4. It's just that simple. Let's look at B. And you should be doing this work with me. So when you get to your lesson, I'm expecting to see that your 5 plus 4 looks like mine or similar to mine. All right, the next one says, write an expression for each tape diagram. So the first one, how many do I have? Let's count. 1, 2. That's in this bracket here. So this is 2. And I'm joining them together with the other part of that. And so that's how many that I'm adding. 1, 2. So I'm going to add 2 and I'm going to write 2, which gives me an equation of 2 plus 2. You do the next one. Let's go down to the exercises. Okay. This first exercise says, predict what will happen when a tape diagram has a large number of squares. Some squares are removed, and then the same amount of squares are added back. Well, predict what will happen. So what they're saying is, when I add some, so we're going to highlight a little bit. Practice what will happen when a tape diagram has a large number of squares and some squares are removed. So we remove some squares and then we add the same amount of squares are added back. So for example, if I have two, three, four, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 squares. I'm going to take 3 away. 1, 2, 3. Because it says some squares are removed. That's what it says right here. Some squares are removed. So now I remove 3 squares. And then it says, and then here, and then the same amount of squares are added back on. So the 3 I took off, I'm going to put back on. So I'm going to erase it kind of. 1, 2, 3. What does that give me? What answer does that give me? Does that give me 2 as my answer? Or does that give me 5 as my answer? So here's I'm going to do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to take away 3. And then I'm going to put back 3 back on. So I'm going to show you 3 back on even with those off. 1, 2, 3. So how many do I actually have that's not crossed out? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that still gives me 5. So the prediction that I'm making is that if I take some squares away from my problem, but then add the same amount back on, I get the amount that I started with. So that is my answer. I get the amount that I started with. Okay? If you have questions, go ahead and email me or write them down so you can send them to me. Now it's telling you exactly what to do. Number 2 says, build a tape diagram with 10 squares. remove 6 squares. Write an expression to represent the tape diagram. Okay? So we're going to build a diagram with 10 squares. That's what it says here, and we should underline that because that's what it's telling us to do. So let's build our tape diagram. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? So I have built my tape diagram with 10 squares, and I'm going to take 6 away. It says remove 6 squares here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've taken 6 away. Write an expression to represent the tape diagram. So I started out with 10. How many did I take away? 6. And what does that leave me with? 10 minus 6 equals 1, 2, 3, 4. And 10 minus 6 equals 4. Now it's saying add 6 squares onto the tape diagram. So I start with 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I start with 4. So it tells me add 6 onto the tape diagram. So I already have 4, so I'm going to add 6 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's the original expression to represent the current tape diagram. So how many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So my total is 10. Okay, here we go. Starting from here, we took 10 away. We started with 10, then we took 6 away. That gave us 4 squares left. Then we added those 6 that we just took off. We added them back in, which gave us how many squares? You should have had the answer 10 squares. So now let's look at, it says evaluate the expression. Well, evaluate the expression means how many did I actually have at the end? I added 10 back, and this should be a plus 10 here. So I added 10 back, and now if I evaluate my expression, 4, and I'm going to write it out so you can see it. 4, 10 minus 6 plus 6 equals 10. These two kind of cancel themselves out, so you get what you started with. See how that works? All right. So it says write an equation using variables. Remember, variables are letters that represent numbers. So write an equation using variables to represent the identities we demonstrated with the tape diagram. So if I use W as my 10 that I started with, minus X, which is what I subtracted, plus X, which is what I added back in, equals W. So all I did was take the letters and make them represent numbers. Take the letters and make them represent the numbers based on what I did. This X has to be the same because W is my 10 minus X, which is 6, plus X, which is also 6, equals W, which is 10. So whatever number you start out using that's associated with that letter or that variable, that's what it's going to be for the next consistently. So this W equals 10, this W equals 10. This X equals 6, this X equals 6. Okay? So now I'm going to do the first one with you, and then you're going to finish the rest. Here we go. So using the knowledge of what we just did, 4 plus 5, what are we going to have to do? What are we going to have to subtract in order to get 4 again? So we have 4 plus 5, and if you need to, you can also draw a tape diagram. So here we have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 plus 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to mark that 4 plus 5. And then what do I need to subtract in order to get 4 again? So here we go. I can take off the 5 that I just got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we just did minus 5 gives us what? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 plus 5 minus 5 equals 4. So my answer here is minus 5. And that's exactly what we've been doing. So here's what I'm expecting you to do. I would like you to continue with the rest of 4. The same thing with variables this time. It's the same exact thing that we did here when we did our W and our X. And then you will move on, and then that will be the lesson for the day, actually. So the only thing you have for homework is your problem set, so you can do that at the end of this, take a break. Or you can go ahead and do your exit ticket. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to call me or email me from your from the Google Classroom itself. Good luck.